Hi guys, welcome to another interesting episode of Gist with Essay. It's so good to have you guys on, and yes, we're back live on Instagram as well. So if you're on Instagram and you're watching us, you want to see the guests that are on the show today, you have to hop onto YouTube. Check my stories. You see the link to the YouTube channel on my stories on Instagram. And to my wonderful family on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. It's good to have you guys back on the show, the Gist with Essay show. Today we have four guests on our show, okay? And we're still talking about the issue of domestic abuse. And today we are talking about the role of religious leaders, the role that religious leaders play in domestic abuse. What are the things that they do? What are the advices that they give that get victims, that leave victims unsupported, feeling unsupported and stuff like that. We've got someone on the show who is a psychologist and has the experience as well. So she's going to be sharing a bit of her story with us as well. Hi, Instagram fam. Hop onto YouTube. Good to have you guys. And then we have a pastor in the house with us. We also have a lecturer whose main subject of lecture is Sharia law. Okay, he's also a lawyer, by the way, so he's well schooled on the issue of Sharia law, and he will be taking us through what the Islamic aspects of this whole domestic abuse is, how religious leaders, Islamic religious leaders, the role that they play, and what the Quran says about domestic abuse and all of that. So we're here to learn, okay, from everyone on the show today. I'm going to bring in our first guest, who is, like they say, ladies first, right? So I'm bringing on Ada Tina Nwachuku to join the show. Hello, Ada. Thank you for joining us on the Gist with Essay. It's good to have you. Hello, Ada. Okay, while we're waiting for that, if you're on Instagram and you want to contribute at some point in the show, you can request to join the Instagram live video, and then we can hear your contributions as well. Okay, so while we're waiting for hi Ada. Okay, so I think I've got two of your devices. That's where the issue is. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. And then next, I'm going to bring on. Okay, for those of you just joining us on Instagram, if you want to be a part of the show on Instagram, please request to join the live feed. Or if you want to see our guests, then you have to hop onto YouTube. And for everyone on YouTube and Facebook, you know how we do. Please share so your friends and family can join the show. I'm going to add the other guests. We've got Pastor Tosin Williams. He's the lead pastor of his church. And then we also have, hello, Pastor Tosin.
Hello, everybody. How are you today?
Thank you for joining us. We're good. We're good. Great day. Mr. Ibrahim is also in the house. Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you for joining the show.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Okay, good. So we're expecting one more guest, but before she joins us, let's get started. So, Ada, over to you. We'd like to hear some of your experiences with the issue of abuse, and particularly, I would like to know the role that your church, your religious group, played, in your issue with domestic abuse. What did they do about it? Did you actually take it to them? And if you did, what did they do about it? And how did that affect you? And then where are you now?
It's a long one. I think we're going to take it one step at a time, so everyone can come in. Thank you so much for this opportunity and to come and share my experience. Before I get to where I am now, it's been a long journey. I'm a counseling psychotherapist here in the UK. And when you mention the topic, it's obviously a very profound one. My experience in terms of domestic violence, is my one is particularly, I'm going to focus on my marriage, the marriage that I was in previously. And it's very sad that at that time when I was in that place, I could not get the support that I believe I'm supposed to get from the people that I trusted in the Christendom. Yeah. And for example, when I wanted to talk to someone, I needed a shoulder to cry on. I didn't get the shoulder to cry on. When it comes to the church that I belonged at the time, all I was mostly hearing is whenever there's tears drop, where's your faith? Why are you crying? You're allowing the devil to laugh. Whereas at that time, what I wanted was a shoulder to cry, someone to listen to my pain, someone to understand what I was going through. But I was suppressed. That was suppressed. That was pushed down as, crying would mean that you don't have faith. Cry would mean that you don't trust God. Cry would mean that you don't know, you're not a Christian yet. Maybe you need to be born again. So, and that really made me resent a lot of people at that time. Shyly, I went away most of the time, was not associating, because I don't want to be seen as someone who is weak in prayer, as someone who is weak, who don't trust God, as someone who don't believe in God. So that put me further away, even instead of getting closer to them, because they were not listening. They were just giving me this thing that was what I was looking for. So I never got the support I needed at that time.
Okay, so how did that make you feel? Like you are now divorced from this man, yeah? Okay, so why do you think that they were not giving you the advice that you needed? Is it that your husband was painting a different story, or they just believed you needed to hold on to your faith and that things will get better?
Yes, it was more of like hold on to your faith, and things will get better, because it was kind of like a big church. You hardly get in touch with the pastor anyway.
Oh, okay.
You hardly get in touch with the pastor. So you have to go through protocols. You have to go through there are some kind of like gate men, I would say, if you like. You have to get to this to get to that person. So I could only reach so far. So they have like groups. They have like groups,
okay,
prayer groups, this group, that group. So the groups that I belong to, we are more of like prayer. I ran to them. He didn't.
Okay.
I was the one that needed the help. I was the one that needed a solution. I needed the support. So I was running to them as brothers and sisters in the faith, but they were not there for me. And it's very sad, because before that happened, it felt like I was in a family, that I can trust, that I could run to. But it was more of like, they held certain prayer meetings to that cause, to that. See, let's pray, let's hold on this prayer. There's nothing a prayer cannot do. There's nothing prayer cannot do. But listen, where I am now, I can tell you, there's something I don't know if I mentioned to you. I am commissioned apostle, and the reason why I don't bring myself forth to describe myself like that is because of the things that I've seen that is going on in the religion, especially in the Christendom. That is the area I would look at. You understand? There is no that support. They don't allow you to cry it out. They don't allow you to be you. Which I think that is not what God wants for us. Cry if you feel like crying. Not let us pray. They prayed, but nothing happened, because that was what I wanted. I wanted to show that to my own. I didn't get that. I didn't get the support that I needed at that time. Yeah.
Okay. Before we go on, Instagram fam, Thank you for joining us. Please, if you want to see our guests and not just hear them, hop onto our YouTube channel. For those of you just joining us, the link is on my story. Just click on the link and then you'll be able to see our guests that are, on the show with us. We have Ada Wanchuku sharing her own story. So yeah, you talked about the church being a big church, and yes, I can relate. I understand. Yeah, I haven't gone through that kind of experience, but I've been in a big church and I've needed, something from the church, and it was difficult to get to the main pastor. So I understand where you're coming from with that, but those other little groups are set up in big churches so they can cater to the needs of the members that cannot get to the pastors or the head pastors directly. Okay, so my issue is, yes, there's a place for praying, and then there's a place where we need to be practical. I've been in a big church before. I had an accident and it was beyond praying. I needed support, I needed help, and I had people to attend to me because they had prayed, but I was hospitalized and I needed people to come in to check on me, to take care of me, to bring me food and stuff like that. So, and they showed up for me. That's why you have those little groups. The main pastor of the church never even knew I had an accident, which was fine. The little group that I belong to, they are a representation of the church as a whole. So I felt that. I felt that, okay, this church was there for me because beyond the prayers, they came in, they brought food, they brought money, they paid bills. You get what I mean? So yes, if you're going through something like domestic violence, you definitely need more than just counseling.
Food. More than just food.
And more than just food, more than just holding hands in prayer, in faith, and saying, oh, it's going to get better. There are some situations they have to investigate, and then there are some situations they have to take the woman out of the home first for safety reasons. Okay, why do I say this? I've had conversations with pastors because I've had friends in abusive relationships, and I went to my pastor and I said, this is what my friend is going through. And he said to me, he's a pastor, and he said, tell her to leave that home first. Her life is what is more important than whatever marriage she's trying to protect. So I'm going to go to Pastor Tosin. Pastor Tosin, you've heard what Ada had just said about her little experience. I know it's just a brief of what she actually went through, but you get the whole picture. Yeah, what do you have to say? Where do you think that the church lacked in, giving her support?
Thank you for this opportunity, first and foremost. And I'm going to start from where you just stopped on saying you had a friend who was going through an abusive relationship, and you went to your pastor, and your pastor said to tell her to leave the house. You see, it was probably easy to do that because that friend of yours is not directly under him.
Yeah, okay.
So, and then in a spiritual setting, it is a sensitive issue for pastors because they assume that they are there to join people together and they shouldn't be the one that are separating people. Whereas when the life of either of the party is so concerned, all that becomes irrelevant. It is who is alive that you can say you want to counsel. If one party is gone, it's gone. And so many untimely deaths have actually happened that we will come under the auspice of, maybe it's the will of God.
Of God, yeah.
It is the lack of understanding of men that has actually allowed that death to have happened. You see, when God says he hates divorce in the book of Malachi chapter 2 verse 16, I read the scripture. I understand that part. But I also know that God also hates murder. If he hates divorce, so he hates murder. And he hates to either to kill yourself or to be killed by somebody in a relationship because you want to stay there at all costs. So, and some of these things are also born out of culture. We are pastors that are also in a way cultural. We explain the scriptures by our cultural understanding, cultural upbringing, environment, and society, if we are to look at the situation and think, there's a saying that was going over the years now, say, what would Jesus do? If we're to look at each case based on its own merit and ask ourselves as a pastor, say, what would Jesus do? I guarantee you, if a case comes to every pastor's desk and say, this lady has always been beaten by her husband, and every time she is been beaten by this husband, I'm sure Jesus will tell the woman, for now, separate. I don't solicit for divorce, no, but I will say my first practical counsel is, what? First, separate to understand what is going on. That may be fundamental error in the case that maybe when they were courting or dating, or maybe there's not enough time for them to actually to know each other. A couple of days ago, a guy came to me and said, talking about he's still going through a relationship. They were trying to know the lady and was trying to say, I want to know everything. I said, guess what? Let me shock you. You will never, and you can never know a lady until you marry her. So you either go blinded or you go with faith. But to say you want to know everything is not possible. So sometimes when you now, if some of people, you see some signs when you are dating, see some signs when you are courting, when you go out, the way it treats you. Some people can do it, can pretend, but nobody can pretend forever. Pretense can go for a while, but it got to a point that it's like an elastic. If you pull it, it will get a point, it will reach its limit. It won't go further than that. So if people have actually gone through a normal dating process, they will see signs. But some women believe, I can change him. I will change him if I pray more. And like my sister just said right now, some leaders believe that you have to pray. It means you have not prayed well. It means you did not fast well. And at that point in time, even if you want to pray or fast well, is when you are alive that you can pray and fast well.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Tosin. Before I go to Mr. Ibrahim, okay, I keep saying Mr. Tosin, pardon me, Pastor Tosin. And I also forgot to mention, Pastor Tosin actually has a book. So he's also an author. He's not just a pastor, he's also an author. And you can find his book on his Instagram page. His handle is at I am Pastor Tosin. Okay, yeah. So before we go to Mr. Ibrahim, Ada, how did you eventually get out of the relationship? And Instagram fan, before you answer that 1 minute, thank you for joining. If you're just joining us on Instagram, I'm going to be off Instagram in a minute. I just got on here to let you people know the show is on and is live. Please go to my story and click on the link to join us on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook. Unless you want to be a part of the show, in that case, you can send me an invite on Instagram, and then you can be live with us on Instagram. Then everyone else, please start sending in your comments, your questions, so our guests can, touch on them before the show is over. Yeah, so over to you, Ada. How did you eventually get out of the marriage? At what point did you make up your mind, you know what, I can't keep doing this. I've tried out my faith. I have prayed all I can. I need to leave.
Okay, thanks for the question. Yes, how did I get out of this? I pray personally. I'm someone that is very spiritual. I understand that, the connection with the universe, the connection with God. So when churches failed me, I just prayed on my own and just cried because I needed to cry. So I just cried behind closed doors, most of the time cried, and just air myself out, air my voice, my pain out to God, just airing it to him that I don't deserve this. Why am I going through this pain and that, And eventually what happened in my case, and I know it doesn't happen all the time, that he took himself out eventually.
Okay.
He took himself out. Okay. So, and it was on the note of, everyone has their different situations and different circumstances and things like that. My one was in a case where he was with someone, You know, he was with someone. Even when I was running to church for prayers and everything, it was kind of like, you know, that devil is roaring everywhere looking for who to do, marriage to break, you know. So I was like, devil is roaring everywhere looking for my marriage to break up, you know. And he was in a relationship that I found out, and that was like messing up the whole thing. And so you know, I was praying, and obvious at some point he got uncomfortable and he just wanted out. So he literally took himself out. One day I went to drop the kids from school, and I came back, half of the closet was empty, you know. So
Wow.
yes, the half of the closet was empty, even though I had begged him to kind of not you know, like, you know, a woman would be like, love me, not her, you know, this is home, this family, let's protect this home. She's coming to destroy whoever she is. She's here to destroy. This is what devil is looking for, what we built together to destroy it. And he got carried away with that, with everything, you know. So he went out. So that was how, and he went out and he never looked back.
Wow.
He went, never looked back. He tried coming, no, not tried coming back. His parents kind of like encouraged him to like go back, look after the kids, take care of them, you know, no matter what, you need to, you know, remember your children. He came, you know, couple of times, try to see the kids, but he still left them. Not coming back to live with us, but it was like, okay, I want to see them. And then I gave him access to them. And then he stood them up. And, you know, so he literally took himself out. I did not do anything to take him out. He took himself out. And when I look back now, I can see, yes, sometimes, that's why I always say that some separation. Now I'm saying this now because I'm in a place where I can say this comfortably and I can prove it in any sense, you know, that there are some separation, or if you want to call it divorce, anyhow you want to put it, that are not meant for evil, that are not bad. There are some separation. As much as you love that thing, you want to keep it. It's meant to go. The time has elapsed and it must go. And that is what people need to begin to understand. There are some relationships, there are some marriage. When I say relationship, relationships can come in so many forms. Whether you want to call it marriage, it's a relationship. Whether you want to call it boyfriend, girlfriend, it's whatever it is, you and your children relationship. Friends have relationships. Schools, you connect with your teachers, that is a relationship. Professional relationships, whatever forms they are a point where it comes to an end. And when it starts to separate, we need to begin to understand that gap and why is it taking place? Because there are sometimes we need that to separate. You know, what we don't know how we come about having them. How do we know how far it's going to go? You know, I'm going to drop this. You know, let's, you know, as we go on, we look into it. You know.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Ada. Mr. Ibrahim, I'm going to come to you in a minute. Instagram fam, I can see you guys all joining in. Oh yeah, Mr. Age, thank you for
This thing
joining
is
in.
not charging.
If you want to be a part of the show live on Instagram, send me a request, or you can drop your questions in the comment section and then I will read them out to the guests. YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, I can see all your comments. So please drop them and then we'll take questions and comments at some points in the show. Cream Chick, I see you. If you want to be a part of the shows, just send a request, okay? Mr. Ibrahim, oh wow, I've got Jennifer. Hello, Jennifer. Okay, before she comes on, Mr. Ibrahim, you've heard everything that Tin has said so far, and it's just, you know, a brief, and she's just one of the thousands of people experiencing these things. I'm also going to touch on a very popular story very soon. But before we get there, what do you have to say, and what's the role of Islamic religious leaders when it comes to the issue of domestic violence?
All right, thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. I have had everything that has been said so far, especially by the guests, and especially the experience from Ada. And I think, domestic violence is a reality we live, unfortunately, and it cuts across all societies, all faiths, all beliefs, and all cultures. From the perspective of Islam, domestic violence or domestic abuse, as it is called, which I believe is one and the same thing, depending on the the expression you choose to use. It's actually condemned in Islam. Family life, marriage is an institution, especially. Marriage is an institution which is protected and actually revered in Islam. And that is why, from the beginning, when a man is getting married to a lady, the lady is not allowed to just get married to the man. Her family has to actually be involved. And when that is done, marriage is considered in Islamic law as what is called in Arabic, mithaqan ghalidha. What that means is it's a sacred covenant.
Okay.
Now, it's a sacred covenant because it comes with responsibilities. And those responsibilities are expected of both the two spouses, that is, the man and the woman. Islamic law, establish responsibilities for both the parties. It also establishes rights and duties. Now, the responsibility of a man in an Islamic home is to provide, for the family. Irrespective of what the woman has, he has to provide for her. He has to take care of her needs, and he has to also respond, to every, issue that she may have, because she is under his protection.
Okay.
Now, Islam, on the other hand, the responsibility of the woman or the wife is to do that which is expected of a wife in a home, but she also has rights. Because what Islam says, especially in the Quran, Allah says, وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Sorry, I'm quoting this in Arabic. The translation of that is that the same rights you may have over your wives, they have also similar rights over you. This is a commandment of Allah directed to the husbands, that the same rights that Allah gives you towards your wives, they also have those rights. Now, and also, Islam says, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. This is the Quran talking. That when you are treating your wives, you should treat them with utmost kindness.
Yeah.
And the Prophet, in Islam, we have two primary sources from which, we get rules. And these rules, when you infract these rules in Islam, you are not just offending Allah, you are also offending the law, meaning that you could be committing an offense or infracting on somebody's right, for which there are rules that regulate that. And we have Islamic courts like, in Nigeria, where you have issues, you approach those courts, and those courts can render judgments that can actually be enforced against you. Now, the sources for that is Quran, and also the sayings and the practices of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. Okay, that is what we call Sunnah. So the Prophet said, the best among you are those who are the best in their treatment of their wives.
Wow.
And I am the best among you. So the Prophet was never in his lifetime found, being harsh, on his family, or harsh, towards any of his domestic staff. And at every given opportunity, he sees any injustice being meted out against either a wife or a domestic staff, he stops it and he rebukes the person doing it. And if there is any need, for any retribution, he comes in to do that, because he is also a judge in his lifetime. There was a time, the Prophet saw, one of his companions beating a slave boy, Immediately he saw him doing that, he asked him to stop it. And he said, you both are servants of Allah. That is, you both are servants of God. And God will punish you for what you're doing. So he threw away the cane and said, as part of my expiation, I have now freed him. He is now a free man. When he did that,
Okay,
the Prophet now
sorry,
looked at
Mr.
him.
Ibrahim. Sorry to cut
Yes.
you. I'm getting feedback. So, Pastor Tosin and Ada, please, can you mute yourselves? Let's make sure the feedback is not from your mics.
Say again?
Yeah.
Mute.
Okay, please. Yeah, can you mute yourself when you're not the one speaking so that we don't get feedback? Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go away briefly. My battery is running down.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna join back quickly, please. Let me go and get another charger. Sorry about this.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Ibrahim, Instagram fam, are you guys coming live on Instagram or you want to hop on to YouTube? Please drop your comments in the comment section so I know, because I need to leave Instagram in a bit. Okay, but if you want to come on live, then I'm going to stay for you. Otherwise, please let's all move to YouTube and then drop our comments over there. Thank you guys. Mr. Ibrahim, sorry to have cut you short.
It's okay. It's all right. So what I was trying to say here is that, when he did that, the Prophet now told him that had you not done what you have done, that is freeing this slave boy, that serves as expiation for your sin, but God would have actually punished you with hellfire. Now, the background I'm trying to paint here is that Islam upholds violence against any person, and especially violence against, women, and especially those who are your wives. Now, when this happens, it's a reality. It happens. I have seen it, many times. As a lawyer, I have had a cause, to represent, persons who have been domestically abused, and this comes from not just from the, wife side. It can also be, from the man. At one time, I actually represented a person who is even a judge that was being abused by his wife.
Wow.
This could actually sound surprising, but this is it. He was a magistrate and he was abused by his wife. There were pictures and everything that we presented in court. So issues like this happen. Now, what role do religious leaders, play in this respect? Now, one thing we should understand about Islamic law is that for every infraction of right, there is remedy.
Okay.
Now, marriage is a contract, and this contract is sacred, and the rights and duties of the parties are clearly spelled out. And these are not just spelled out by the parties themselves, they are spelled out in the law. You can find this in the Quran, you can find it in the Sunnah, you can also find this in the work that is done by jurists. Now, whenever there is a problem in the home, of course, the first point of call mostly is actually the lady would either report to her parents, or she would report, to maybe a religious leader, because the society in Islam, we hold them, in high esteem. Now, whenever this happens, the first injunction that Islam, gives in respect of this is that such a religious leader should try to hear from both parties and should try to see how he can, resolve the issue by kind of coming up with some sort of settlement between the two of them. And this he will do in accordance, hearing from them, and then looking at what Allah has said, on the rights and duties. Say, for example, because, abuse can be, it could be physical abuse, it could be emotional abuse, it could even be financial abuse that probably he is not providing for her, or he's even taking that which is in, you can find men who are taken from their wives. And in Islam, that is prohibited. You are not expected to take from your wife, you are expected to provide for her, but you provide according to your means. That concept of, the wife and the husband, jointly contributing to, the maintenance of the family is alien to Islam. In Islam, it is wholly the responsibility of the man, but he does that according to his means. So The husband is expected to provide for the wife. He's also expected to provide for the children. He is not expected to maltreat any of these, that is the wife or the children. And if this happens, the expectation is that the religious leader should ask him to perform his duties. And he is also expected to investigate to find out what actually happens. In fact, where you have the issues become so difficult to resolve, by the religious leader, what the Quran says is that if you fear, Quran says, if you fear conflict between the two sides, that is the wife and the husband, then appoint, arbitrators from both sides. That is, you have the religious leader on one side, then appoint two respected persons from the family. This is the Quran talking. Appoint an arbitrator from her family and also from the family of the husband. Let them try to study the issues between the two of them. And Allah says, if they are sincere about resolving the issues between the two of them, Allah will help them resolve it. This is the Quran talking. But
Okay.
where all this failed, you cannot find, solution to the problem, then the law has to take its course. The law has to take its course. And this could be in a number of ways. One, as we know in Islam, a husband has the right to divorce his wife.
Okay.
A husband has the right to divorce his wife. The wife can seek divorce on two grounds. The first ground is where the wife feels, because in Islam, marriage is a form of worship. If you are in a marriage, you are also worshiping God. So you get reward for being good to your spouse.
Okay.
And you commit sin for being bad to your spouse. So if you feel that there is no love between the two of you, you do not feel any love towards your husband, and you do not wish to stay in the marriage, Islam gives you the opportunity as a wife, to terminate the contract. How do you do that? You can tell him that I do not wish to continue in this union, and therefore I will return to you the dowry you gave me. So you gave me, when we were contracting the marriage, so that I can go my way.
Okay.
So that I can go my way. This is the first option. The woman has the right to do this. And if the husband refuses, she can even take the matter to court, and the court can do that. In fact, it's one of those cases in our court that, the husband does not even have any defense. The only thing you can do is to negotiate the settlement. How much is she giving you? How much is she giving you? Is she giving you more than what you've given her if she is ready to do it? Or is she giving you less than what you have given her when you are, contracting the marriage? That is the first one. The second option is where, the wife probably is being abused in the home. And of course, she may love the husband, but she could not continue to stay in the marriage because of the abuse. Now, in this case, she could actually take the matter to court. She could take the matter to court and ask the court to dissolve the marriage. The marriage. Not that where she can establish that she is being maltreated, because maltreatment is a ground for divorce under Islamic law.
Okay.
So if she could prove that she is actually being maltreated by the husband, then the court can actually dissolve the marriage, in that regard. The difference between this and the first one is that in the first one, she has to pay him compensation because there is no reason for the divorce. She's saying, I don't want to stay with you. Therefore, take what you have given me and let me go. But in the second one, she's saying he's maltreating me, and therefore I want to be relieved, of being in the marriage. So the court can actually listen to that, and the court can relieve her of that. Then the third option, is that the abuse could actually, get to a stage where, because the abuse itself, is oppression, and oppression is abhorred in Islam. Allah does not like anyone who is an oppressor, because Allah says, I have prohibited oppression on myself. This is Allah, the God speaking. I have prohibited oppression on myself, so I can never oppress anyone. And I have made oppression forbidden amongst all of you. So for this reason, whenever you see oppression as a Muslim, not even as a scholar, you're expected to remove it. Allah says in the Quran, you see, you are the best of nations. Now, addressing the Muslims. You are the best of nations. Why? Because you enjoying the doing of good and you forbid the doing of bad. So whenever you see something, the Prophet is saying, whenever you see something bad happening to someone being oppressed, you have to do your best to see that that is stopped. He says, if you see something bad happening to someone, say, for example, oppression, violence, somebody maltreating another, then you have to do your utmost best, to stop it. And you can stop it if you have the ability, use your hand. That is, if you are a judge or somebody in authority, you use your hand by punishing the oppressor.
Okay, Mr. Ibrahim.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you for the background. We understand what, but you said something that caught my attention, that a woman has two grounds on which she can divorce her husband. One, she doesn't love him anymore, and two, that she's been abused, if she can prove it. Yeah. But you also said that a man is allowed to divorce his wife, but you didn't mention on what grounds.
Okay, so this is how Islamic law, is designed. All right, Islamic law is designed, in such a way that, marriage is a contract. All right, marriage is a contract. So the man is, is the one, because in Islam, like probably I know a man has the right to marry up to 4 wives. That is the limit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he has the right to do that, but then the condition for him doing that is that he must be able to do justice, among these wives. Okay. He must be able to do justice amongst them. So if a man feels that, he cannot continue to be married to a lady, then Islam says he shouldn't continue to stay with her. He should divorce her. All right? Okay. He should divorce her. All right? So you are not allowed to continue to be married to her if you cannot continue to be with her. Now, you should
as in be with her in the sense that you can't provide for her anymore, or be with her in the sense that you don't love her anymore.
Providing for her is your duty. You have to be able to provide for her. But for example, there are times when you find that someone is in the marriage, he cannot, because the thing is, if you are in a marriage with a lady, you have to provide for her. You have to, show love for her. You have to do everything that is possible to be good to her. Now, if you cannot do that, or for whatever reason, you have to let her go. But if you let her go, that does not mean that is the end of it. You cannot let her go and avoid your responsibility. When a man divorces a wife, a woman, she has custody of the kids. That is designed, that is settled. Okay. She has custody of the kids. The man doesn't have custody of the kids unless, the lady doesn't want to have custody. Okay. But when she has custody, he also has to provide for the kids. Okay. She has custody, but she is not the one to provide for the kids. So the man has to also provide a house and accommodation for the kid. He has to provide for the feeding, clothing, education, and everything of the kid. He can divorce her, but he has to also continue to provide for the kids of the marriage, who should continue to be in her custody. Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim. Okay, and I want to ask a question. After your question, we're going to go on a little break and then we'll be back. And then I would want you to also touch on, the mental implications that, abuse has on a woman. And Pastor Tosin as well, I would also like you to touch on the spiritual implication of a woman, of what abuse, and then how the church treats a woman who is divorced, because we've heard a lot of terrible stories surrounding such treatment. So Ada, what was your question? Quickly.
Yeah, my question is back to Mr. Ibrahim. The question that you asked, I was also interested to hear. A woman can divorce if she's no more in love. There's no love, there's no, the man is not, there's abuse. A woman have the right by Islamic law to divorce. Now, what will a man have? What situation will warrant a man to divorce the wife? What is it that for a man to divorce his wife? Is it fornication, for example, if she fornicates? That's just an example.
Okay.
So according to Islamic law,
Okay.
how can a man divorce? What would happen? So that anyone listening would be aware
so
of
what
that.
does a woman have to do
Okay.
that would
Okay. Let me
give her
start with the
husband the right
last
to
with the
divorce
last
her?
example you give. You see, you know, I studied law. I'm a lawyer, so I know probably fornication and maybe adultery. The fact that you can no longer stay in the marriage, you know, is one of those grounds, you know, under the law that you can seek divorce for. But Islam does not actually look at that. You know, Islam looks at the protection, you know, of both, you know, the two parties. If a man accuses his wife, for example, of adultery, you know, generally in Islam, if you accuse someone of adultery as a man, then you can actually seek divorce. But the divorce you seek is not just a divorce. You can only, that one can only be, because when you accuse her of adultery, because adultery is an offense under Islamic law. And the implication of saying somebody has committed adultery is that you are asking that the person be punished for adultery. Now, the thing about Islam is that if you accuse someone of committing adultery, you have to be able to prove it. If you are not able to prove it, you have to be punished. And the punishment, because then that becomes defamation, and defamation is actually a punishable offense. So usually for husbands, if a husband accuses his wife of adultery, and he has to either have to find a way to live with that and ask her to seek for God's forgiveness, or if he decides to expose it, he has two options: being able to prove it, or they go through what we call li'an. What we call li'an is actually a procedure that has to be observed before the court, where you say that I do not trust my wife because she has committed this, and I am, you know, let the wrath of God be on me if I am lying that she has committed adultery.
Oh, okay.
If he does that, then they will be separated by the court. But that's to answer your first question. But now the second question, generally, a man can actually divorce his wife. He has, you can, you know, you have three, you know, divorces that is given to a man. You understand? What I mean by three divorces, you can only divorce your wife 3 times while she is married to you. Now, if for any reason you feel that you cannot stay with this wife, then Islam says you, because continuing to stay, because the women are the ones at the receiving end.
Okay.
They are the one at the receiving end, because Islam understands that whatever we say, whatever we do, you know, men would always continue, you know, to have dominance over the women. So you are not allowed to continue to be with a woman when you know you cannot be just to her. So if you cannot be just to her, then you are expected to let her go. Okay. That is what Islam says. And if you do that, you are given, you know, a grace within which to find a way, you know, to reconcile with her if you want. So you are expected to divorce her, maybe give her 1 divorce, and within a particular period, say 2 months, 3 months, if you can reconcile, you can take her back. But after the 3rd divorce, you can never take her again. She cannot be your wife. She has to go and marry someone before she could be your wife again. This is as a punishment so that people will not play with this law. All right? Okay. So the thing is, then on the other hand, a woman is not expected to continue to be in an abusive home. Okay? Is not expected to continue to be in an abusive home. So where there is an abuse and it is reported, then the man, let's also not forget that abusing one's wife could also, you know, amount to a criminal offense.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So, Mr. Ibrahim, let me just touch on what you just said, because I actually agree with it, and then we'll go on a break and then we'll come back. That if you know you cannot continue to be just to your wife, then you have a right to abuse her. And yes, I know that
You
if
have
you
the right
cannot continue to divorce her, sorry, to divorce her, not abuse her, yeah. If you cannot continue to be just to her, and I think that just makes sense, okay? If I can't be good to you, if I cannot treat you right, if I cannot, provide for you and stuff, instead of putting you through torture or through abuse, then it's better that I divorce you. Okay, so we're going to go on the break, but Pastor Tosin, I want you to think on that, and then when we come back, you tell me how a Christian or the Christian religious group would handle such a situation where a man is sincere with himself enough to say that I can't be good to this woman. I don't want to spend my money on her. She annoys me so much. I'm going to start hitting her, and all other kind of abuses that people experience in the home. At that point, when a man gets to that point, what would the Christian religious group or Christian religious leaders advise that he does? Because I strongly believe that if you, instead of hitting a woman, walk away from the marriage. That's my own personal opinion on that. So let's go on a break and then we'll be right back.
You make me happy. There you are looking at me with a smile in your eyes. I know say you love me. I know say you love me. All these years we've stayed strong. Never thought I'd feel this way. Loving you such a blessing. You make me feel safe. Never want to leave your arms again, no. I've waited all my life for this. I'm so grateful for your love. 'Cause you make me so happy. You give me joy. 'Cause you make me so happy. You are my joy. 'Cause you make me so happy. You give me joy. 'Cause you make me so happy. You are my joy. For you I give my all. You're everything I hold so dear.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Gist with Esse show. Today we're talking about the role religious leaders or religious groups play in domestic abuse. And just before we went on the break, Mr. Ibrahim touched on one of the reasons why a man can divorce his wife. You can't provide for her. You can't afford to be good to her anymore, to, treat her the way a man should treat the wife. Then you can divorce her. And I think that's very sincere. That's it's a lot. It will take a lot for a man to actually do that, but I think it's sincere and it's better than, letting your frustrations lead you to becoming, an abuser. All right. So, Pastor Tosin, I was saying that what would a church or a Christian religious group do about such a thing, apart from counseling? Because I know that, when you're going through issues in marriage, there is counseling, whether it's from you're advised to go for counseling, so whether it's your church or your Islamic group that is counseling you, or you're paying for counseling, outside of these communities, what can the church do to help such a man or to save such a marriage, bearing in mind that he hasn't started abusing her yet, and we all know that, yes, God hates divorce. So as much as possible, like you also said, Pastor Tosin, if a pastor doesn't want to join you and then now be the same instrument to, tear you guys apart, what would a church do? What would a church leader do in such a situation?
Thank you very much. To be honest with you, very sensitive thing for a church to actually support. If you see any pastor that supports divorce automatically, I think something is wrong with that pastor. We try to do everything possible to save the relationship, to do what we can. And you said out of counseling. Now, most cases, and I'm going to refer to my sister's testimony and to what she shared as we started. You always, when you see let's say a brother comes out now and says, I'm tired of this woman, I don't want to be with her again. Most cases that I've seen so far, or that I've read or heard about, it's always because this so-called brother is already double dealing.
Okay.
It's double dealing. And when somebody's already double dealing, and then there's no amount of counsel you want to give, his heart is already gone. He's just there for the sake of the title, the certificate, what it's worth, what is gonna cost him, what do people say. So he has to go on and on and on about it. And in view of that, everything that this woman does irritates him. The woman can say good morning in a way, in a right way. She can't say good afternoon in a right way. The same person who knows how to cook the best, whose meal was the sweetest, suddenly becomes the sad, because it becomes you are not trained. So it's a very sensitive thing to do. And I'm gonna go on to what she said again. Now, what the only solution is prayer for these people, apart from going final to the word. You know what? It's good to go your separate ways. Now, I always solicit for something, separation.
Okay.
Sister, do you have a place you can go? Do you have a place you can relocate to? And for the meantime, start out again. Let me give you a practical example.
Okay.
There's a lady that I know of. They started going through abusive relationship. It started well, and then suddenly the lady called me in the middle of the night one day and said the guy is just beating her, and then sent her outside. That right now she's talking, she's outside, she's been locked out. And I said, okay, what time of the night? This was 12 o'clock in the night. And I said, okay, try and beg so that at least you can see. And as we're talking, they open the door for her to let us. I said to her, tomorrow morning, pack yourself, go to your parents' place. If you can't go to your parents' place, go to a friend's place. Just stay in a place that you can still regain your sanity. Now, she did that, but by the morning, the parents had gotten involved. The husband's parents, they got enough. They begged them, and then they've kind of made us stay. So I called her and said, they begged us, they've separated. I said, okay, I don't think this thing is fully settled. If it's come to a point that somebody push out in the middle of the night, it doesn't care what happens to you, and suddenly they just begged him, and I don't think it's all right. So the case went on, and then we started following up. And later on, what I had to do, I called it up and I said, you know what you should do is this. I told the guy, I said, when you met this lady, now, okay, no, sorry, in between that, it happened again. Yeah, it happened again. And I told them to separate. So the lady actually now followed the advice and went to her parents' place and stayed there for a while. No, and I called the guy, I said, come, when you met this lady that year long ago, when you said you're going to marry her, if you had told her that, hey, babe, I want to marry you, but I will be beating you, I'll slap you, I'll kick you, I'll push you out, would she come with you? He said, no. Exactly. And I told her, I say, if this guy has come to say, you know what, I'm this loving guy, I'm very generous, and even to the point I can slap, and my generosity goes to kicking. Would you go with him? She said, no. I said, exactly. Now, you, Mr. Man, I want you to go over the same way you were first talking to her in the beginning. The same way the was making you crazy. You were charming her. The same way, go over it now. Let's do a rehearsal. If the rehearsal works, then this thing can still be redeemed. But if at that point you can't rehearse this thing again, because that's the reality of it. If you can't say I love again, if I say you're really making my word go upside down, then there's nothing in that. It's actually, that's an empty box. That's no more marriage. And giving them 2 months to do this guy couldn't come to terms with it. The separation actually revealed what was supposed to happen. The separation made it. There's no need to mend. If you put these two together in the same place again, you probably go in and bring the dead person of one person outside. It's guaranteed. And under that canopy, we just say, no, what this thing called marriage here, You go to, thankfully, you went to the court to join yourself together. Just go back to the court now and tell the court this thing is not working. Rather than us burying somebody and somebody carrying the blame, or somebody has been the one that pushed the other person in the grave. So I think what I would suggest, what I would say is that the best for a church to do is first tell the person, separate while you sort out your differences. And if this cannot, if it's based on irreconcilable one, you know what? Is the last solution, is the last option. Let's go for it. As far as we know that God hates divorce, Jesus gave a command, say on the only condition why a man must leave his wife is if she's committed adultery. And he said, if a man also leaves his wife without the knowledge of the woman being committed adultery, and the man goes to marry another person, that man also is also committed adultery. So which means it's wrong on both accounts. But if it comes to the fact that you are punching, you are beating, I tell the party, either the guy, in most cases, I always tell the lady, sister, pack yourself, go and stay somewhere till you regain your sanity, till you regain yourself. And when you understand yourself, when you think, if he still sees you as somebody that is serious, somebody that he wants to stay with, it will be the one coming around, and then there will be yardstick, there will be measurement, there will be things that will put in place. If they were not in place before you guys were starting a relationship, we will put them in place now, so that he will know that if I touch this button, I'm gone. If I press this button, I'm doomed. Then that will save the relationship, rather than try to say, well, let's begin to pray. Even if we're going to pray, let's pray at distance. If we pray at distance, we'll save somebody.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Tosin. Yes, Jennifer Aliogo, for some reason, I'm unable to add you. I've been trying to add you since we started the show. So maybe check your network and then we'll try again a bit later, because I'm really interested in, your contribution as well. So Pastor Tosin, what you said now has just, dropped in my mind, the word segregation, how a woman is treated after she is divorced. Okay, so we've seen instances, we've heard stories. Okay, and then we also know that the segregation, the stigma is one of the reasons why women remain in abusive relationships. Okay, so what does the church body do for women who are divorced? Okay, so if a widow is treated differently, she lost her husband to death. So yeah, everybody pities her, they rally around her. But we don't see that happening in cases of divorce, or where a woman, is separated from her husband. A lot of people just assume that she's not capable, to hold her home together. And that is why, the home is falling apart. Some people look at it like, oh, okay, no matter what a man does, a woman should be able, to endure in the marriage. So you have people in the church, members of the church, not necessarily the pastor now, but members of the church segregating this woman, sidelining this woman because of this issue that she's going through. What does the church body, because in the case of this popular woman who unfortunately died in the course of her own domestic issues, domestic violence issues, and all of that, we heard that the church body kept saying, pray, don't worry, it will get better. Okay. Now you have a woman who has actually left this marriage because she doesn't want to die for the fear of her life. How do the church support such a person?
When you put it that way, it's more complicated. What I mean by complicated is that when you say the church itself is a bigger part. But under the church, we have different denominations who draw different programs for their people. Okay. And you understand that what we are asking for is what we may not be able to get: perfection, a perfect person who sees everything in a perfect way. That is not going to be possible. Even if the is a perfect person. Let me give you an example. The person that I will regard as the most perfect person on earth ever lived is Jesus. Okay. Sometimes a man went to and said, "Good master." Jesus stopped him and said, "There is no one that is good but God." So which means that if you are trying to think of a pastor being a very good person, God has covered the shortcomings. That's what you have only seen. Now, in view of that, it is difficult for you to think when you get to a church, everybody there will be perfect. No. And I've said before that we are all a product of several things: our relationship, our communities, our society, our culture, our tradition. So we are a function of all that personality. Now, some organizations, some churches, they have different pause for different projects, different pause for different activities. Okay. It is ideal, or it will be ideal for churches to have that kind of stuff as well. That, you know, when somebody is divorced, that we know it's a genuine divorce, we know it's a case of this person is trying to save his or her life. We need to look after them. We need to support them. But what I do want you to know is that the next news or the next headline you will read outside is that the church endorses divorcee, and then so everybody, and then when you see things like that, you will see people also looking for every opportunity, even when they are when they could have amended the stuff to just, you know what, I'm good, and this church will support me. So it's a catch-22 that it's difficult. We are trying to run away from the fire pan, we are falling into the fire. So it's like you can't really win either way. So, but I would suggest that the best will have happened is that a church, or that churches should set up bodies, organizations that say, you know what, for the sanity of this person, he or she decided to walk away and go and try to reprogram or remarry each other. And when they can see that this thing is real, it's not a made-up story, it's not trying to do a shortcut or corner something, support should be made available. Some are doing it. I'm not saying everybody is doing it. And in the aspect of tagging the people, I will say this: nobody can bring you down or make you inferior without your consent.
Your consent.
Every man and woman should understand that. And another thing is this: they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and the point of view of everybody is based on the point they are standing. What I can't see about your relationship, you can see it. I'm not there with you. 3 is a crowd. That's what they call marriage. That's what the Christians call a marriage. When it's 3, it's a crowd. That means it must be between 2 people. So if I'm poking my eyes into your stuff and say, what's going on, then I'm the one trying to separate you guys. So, but if you sees what is going on there, that is dangerous to your life and to your children. And another thing we should also look at, I've realized over history that most abusive children, if not well managed, they end up to become abusive themselves.
Abusers. Yeah.
Abusers. Thank you. So, and that's where work needs to be done on the next generation, that kind of person. You know, how do we mitigate this? How do we solve this problem? So sometimes, in order to say, you know, I don't want these things to linger and carry on forever, let's stop it. Right. So you can say, you know what, I don't want my son, my daughter to go through this, because you realize that women that are abused, having a female a daughter, if care is not taken, that daughter will suddenly find herself in an abusive relationship, and it will think that's the norm, or that's the way life should go. Now, if somebody's trying to say, now, I want this thing to end in my generation, I want to step in so that at least my future, these 2 or these 3 or these 4 that I have, they can have a good life and decide to walk away. Now, the church should support that kind of person. I'm not saying they shouldn't, they support, but the woman also should know that nobody can make her inferior, can say, oh, you can't hold a woman, a man, you can't keep your home. Nobody should be able to put a woman in that corner without her permission. Anybody can say anything. Talk is cheap, so they say. Talk is so cheap. Anybody can say anything as long as they got a mic or they got a platform. They can say it. But to now allow it to come to you, that you are now using that to determine what happens in your life, I think that is where the error is. And that's what. So 2 things I've said now: the church should make this fund available. Every genuine relationship, that is every genuine divorcee, should be supported, should be guided, should be helped. And 2, women that are going through this, or men that are going through, like what Mr. Brenton, showing a case of a judge who's been abused by his wife. There are cases of the woman is beating the man seriously, and you wouldn't know. When you hear sound in the night, all that people hear is that the woman is shouting, until when the case became a big case, I realized that as she's shouting, she's the one beating the man. And people are thinking, this man is very terrible. So as he's beating this woman, this man is wicked. But in the morning, when the man actually finally spoke out, he realized that it was, every time they are hearing the noise, the woman is actually on him and punching him, and she's shouting, and people are thinking, this man is bad. So if the such a man or the woman is able to come out and say, no, for the sanity of my life and for the safety of my life, I want to come out. Such person should not allow labeling to keep him or her in that cage.
Okay.
It's not a wrestling cage fight that you must die in there until somebody wins. No.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pastor Tosin. Pastor Tosin is the lead pastor of Glory Embassy International. Okay. And you've just answered my last question. Yeah. So I'm going to throw the question back to our other two guests. Okay. Mr. Ibrahim, as someone who is, very vast in the Sharia law and all of that, and also to Ada, someone who has experienced it, and also as a psychotherapist, okay, what do you think the church, let's forget what the churches are doing now. We know there are some churches that are putting in their best, okay? Personally, I think that, when you have a big church, we should set up, different groups to ensure that we, beyond having members of this church, of this community, of this group just coming in to pray or to do the work of God and whatever it is that is required of members to do in that gathering, we are invested in the personal lives of these people. Okay, it's only who is alive that can serve. Yeah, someone mentioned that earlier. You have to be alive to be able to do this service. So how can you ensure? Because in the workplace, employers ensure that their employees are treated well. They are okay. Even right now, they are doing all sorts to make sure that mental health of their employees and everything is is intact and all of that. So the churches can also do this. Okay, be invested in the lives of your members beyond your service, beyond the group gathering where everybody's coming and smiling and all of that. Setting up these little groups help. I know that because I've been in a church where we had little groups where people become friends outside of the church to the point where they know, okay, this is what this person is actually going through personally in their lives. And where they can help, they help. And where they feel, oh, we need to get more people involved to help, then the religious group comes in. So Ada and Mr. Ibrahim, what do you think that these religious groups can do more? So in your case, Ada, what do you think they could have done better to help you?
Thank you for that question. I was Pastor Tosin. Thank you so much. Is it gone off?
No, he's still
yes.
Here.
Yeah, thank you so much for your analysis, the things that you explained. I listened to it very carefully, and I'm going to say one thing. The question was, as a body, in the Christendom, as a church, but unfortunately, sometimes we want to separate ourselves. These churches, we know we have different denominations, but when you say church is a body, and in Christendom it's a body of Christ, there is no segregation, there's no separation. So the question is to the church and not to, is this deeper life, is it redeem, is it this, is that? Yeah, as a body, because when you talk about God, we talk about churches, it's one thing, prayer, fasting, and things like that. But the idea of separating, okay, I have my own church, I have my own way, does not apply when somebody approaches somebody on the street and say, oh, come and become a Christian. They say, come and become a Christian, come to our church. There is no segregation. In the body of Christ, we're supposed to be one. Now, what we are looking at is not which church does this, which church does that, what program, okay, I'm different from this person or from this denomination because I have my own, nobody's perfect. No, when it comes to Christianity, what we should be looking at is one body, and what can we do collectively to ensure that people are not going through this issue of domestic abuse. And there was something you said also that I liked, and that you started saying it, and I hope that other pastors will follow suit, which is, yes, I may not encourage divorce, but I am on the part of, if there's an abuse, separate first. Let us see what is going on, because you cannot get healed where you are continuously being broken.
Sure.
You can't get healed there. And like you said, when you are in it, those people you said, okay, let's separate. Why they separated? you ask them question individually. Now, if you were like this, do you think she would marry you? The answer was no. If he was like this, do you think you would have married him? The answer was no. Now, that has given them time to think if this is what really they want. And this is what other pastors should follow suit. You know, to understand the importance of staying away. Staying away does not mean you separate, you divorce. It means time to think and reflect on what it is that you are going through. And most especially, a lot of marriages have come together either because somebody said, oh, I saw somebody went to pastor, I think I'm looking for a wife. The pastor will say, okay, I'll pray and see who God is going to point out for me. I saw this person, is your wife. Or some, out of the girl get pregnant, they don't, because of what people will say, the girl say, you must marry me. Some are parents find for them and all this. So a lot of reasons why people come together as in marriage or in any form of relationship. So as a body of Christ, as a body of church, we should start to talk about the importance of if you sense an abuse, learn to separate. Maybe if I had that support, yeah, where they said to me, okay, instead of just praying, maybe give him some time, like, do you have somewhere to go or something? Take a break, you know. Maybe we will have the time to think, to reflect. But because nobody was suggesting that, we were together, the heat was heat. Like I'm that kind of a person. And when I'm unhappy so I just mute. I don't know how to talk, how to express my feeling. So I repress a lot. I do repress a lot, which is very bad. You know, I take it in, I swallow it. You know, there's somebody swallow, you know, pain, you know. And how I didn't end up with high blood pressure, I don't know, it's God. You know, how I was able, because when you repress too much, it can come up with a lot of things health-wise, you know. For men, they become very abusive. So what I would say is that I'm very happy that we are beginning to talk about this, then the important, even, you know, we don't want to hear divorce, but sometimes divorce is needed, meaning separation. Sometimes it's what we need as individuals. Sometimes you may be with someone who has not discovered themselves before they go into this marriage. Okay, and then when they come into the marriage, they are discovering themselves. Now, how you found the person found you was different from what is manifesting now. Let's say, for example, I am a talk show host right now, yeah, and I like to talk about issues, bring people from all walks of life, all over the world, to talk about how they found their purpose and, you know, what is their drive and how they discovered that thing in them. Now, any man, any woman that is in that field, like myself, any man that would come to them is someone that will support, that already see what you have become, you know, what you have become, and it will attract the right person that can manage that's, oh, this is really great. But if I was in that marriage, if I was in a marriage, try to get that, try to unveil or try to become, you know, and that person doesn't like someone who sits and talk about, you know, chatting with people all over the world, it will not work. So in that time of separation, you are able to reflect and say, okay, if I knew this part of her, when people you know, start to get this abuse, start to happen, they say, oh, when I married him, he was not like this. When I married her, she was not like this. She has changed. No, she has not changed. This is when her true self or his true self start to come out, which in a lot of times we hide them. That is why this is why the point of separation is needed, so that you can now reflect back and see if this is what you really want. So the more we start to talk about the importance of this, I'm not saying you go divorce, but take a break. Take a break and think and reflect. It's very, very important. That person that you say that is changing is not changing. It's their true self. You don't like a businesswoman. Now before you married her, she has not been able to venture into that what she loves or he loves. Now you married her. She wants to start traveling to Dubai. She wants to start traveling international. And you are not a man that wants your wife to be traveling. You prefer someone who goes 9 to 5 and come back home to you. You see? So now who she's supposed to be is manifesting inside the marriage. That is one of the problems that is causing the violence, the abuse, the discrimination, the not supporting, because that is not what you want. You know, like there's this popular artist, you know, gospel artist that passed away recently, unfortunately. What I saw then was this woman had that gift inside of her possibly before she got married. So, but it started to unveil more why she was in the marriage. And the husband was not prepared for that. So when that manifestation starts to occur, he began to see the another side of her that he never knew. He didn't understand. And the envy, the jealousy, oh, so you are now shining. Whereas if that manifestation took place before the marriage, yeah, it will have attracted the right person that will appreciate that gift of her. So if you are watching me right now and you have never discovered your purpose, it's not the best time to venture into the marriage. Like our brother Abraham said, it's a contract. So before you go into this contract, you have to make sure that you know what you're signing. Yes, you know, in some ways you hear God joins, is God that joined marriages, but the same Bible tells us a man would leave his wife, his family, and go out and seek. You understand? He said, go, he will find a wife. He said, go and find. So it's not God that said, you come and join. He said, go and seek it. Go and look for it. And then when you become one, he said, when you find, and then I would bless it. Because he said, when you find it, you know, you obtain good things from God. You know,
okay,
so
let me just speak on what you said so that we can also go to Mr. Ibrahim. Yeah. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And one of the things that I want to say is this, because if you do not find your purpose before you get married, and then you start to find that purpose inside of marriage, there might be a clash, okay, if the man is not supportive. And this is why I know that, okay, I went through counseling before I got married, and it's one of the things they will tell you. You need to discuss your plans, even your future short-term goals and stuff like that with your partner, okay? So I'm a talk show host. I've always wanted to be a talk show host, okay? But it just never materialized until I got married. But when I was courting my husband, I mentioned it. I said to him, entertainment is something that I want to do. I want to be a talk show host, okay? And even while we were dating, he was in support of it. You get what I'm saying? So it didn't manifest until I think 2 years or 3 years into the marriage before I started Gist with Esse. But he knew before we got married. And so, yes, he didn't mind his wife doing that. And so when he started, he's been my rock through it all. Okay, so whatever, in fact, he's even a bigger dreamer than I am. When it comes to what I do, he has a bigger dream for all of this than I do because he's supportive of it. So yes, I agree. When you start to shine, a man who's not prepared may either get jealous of your success, and that will lead to unnecessary pressure on him, and which could lead to violence and all of that. So yeah. Now, because we're talking about the role that the church or the religious groups can play, I think that when people are courting and they are coming to their religious leaders to say, okay, this is someone I'm interested in, issues like this should be visited. Okay, people should be prepared. The men and the women should know that this person you're marrying can change in 5 or 10 years. So you can even want a career woman, 9 to 5 woman, coming home to you. And then when she gets married to you, her career progresses to the point where she's now huge, she's bigger than what you envisioned, okay? And so she's not doing 9 to 5 anymore because she's now a boss. So she has to stay longer hours in the office and stuff like that. So there could still be friction. You see what I mean? The most important thing is that when you love a person, you love them and support them regardless of. So even when a person is bad, it's not even all the time that success is the issue. Okay, a person can make mistakes, but because you love your wife, right, you don't judge her mistakes. You help her through the process to, get back on the right track and stuff like that. So these are the things that, I think that religious groups need to also touch on. So it's not, oh, she's changed, she's not the person I married, or no, now he's changed. It happens. Change can happen. We're all supposed to keep growing. You can't be the same person that you were when you were 16. This is not who you were. Even if you were not married, you've never been married. You've changed over time. You've become a different person. You've got friends that will drop, and because they don't, like the person that you've become, so you're no longer friends. And then the same way, you have friends who are supportive of you despite or in spite of what you become. You see what I mean? So, Mr. Ibrahim, to round up the show for us, just tell us what you think that the Islamic religious groups can do to support couples, to avoid domestic violence. And then when, it's now beginning to happen already in the home, what can they do to support the victims, whether it's the wife or the husband that is a victim? What can religious groups do?
All right, thank you so much. Very interesting perspectives. So I think we should start from the beginning. As a Muslim, and every Muslim I know knows this, we're expected to learn about the religion from tender age. And I think that's where the role should start playing out. The role of religious leaders in Islam is a bit different from probably the role of religious leaders in the church, maybe in Christendom, because the dominance of religious leaders in Muslim life is probably less, because as Muslim, we don't belong to a particular mosque. Okay, we don't belong to a particular mosque. You can go to any mosque and pray. You don't consider a particular person your imam, but of course you can have a scholar, before him you study the religion. Okay, you can pray wherever you find yourself, but you're expected to learn the religion. So I think I will speak differently about that, taking into context, the way religious leaders operate in an Islamic society. Now, I think at the tender age where children, are committed, to Islamic schools, I think they should be prepared for this, where you educate them about the importance of understanding the position of others. As a boy, as a girl, this is what you're going to grow up into, and this is what you should do, whenever you understand maybe some changes, from your either friend or your partner, be it maybe when you grow up, to be a man and so on. And also this should continue, because Islamic education is something which we continue. I still, listen to, go to, study cycles, to discuss, to listen to scholars, and also to ask questions, to discuss issues, pertaining to my religion. These are things that we should continue learning. So I think these, issues of domestic violence, and especially the rights and duties, of spouses, at the earliest opportunities, boys and girls should be exposed to this. Because if you know this, because in Islam, whatever you do, there is a religious implication for it. And that religious implication may include you earning the reward, the pleasure of God, or you sinning. And the expectation is that irrespective of, of the worldly result that may, result from that, you are expected to always see God in what you do and be fair, to each other. Now, there is this concept in Islam when it comes to marriage, preparatory to marriage, you are expected to study your compatibility. It is called kafa'a. And I think that is what the two guests have actually discussed. Compatibility is very important. You're expected to study the person you are marrying, be it, a man, or a lady, and then to see where you agree and where you disagree. Of course, it will be very, very difficult, but at least the basics, you should be able to understand that. Unfortunately, probably because of culture, this is not seen manifestly, done in practice, because, issues of marriage are largely controlled, especially on the part of the, lady by the family. And sometimes you can find issues of maybe selfishness, from the part of the family. So I think it should go, for Muslims, it should go beyond the parties. It should also include their parents. Because in most cases, these issues are complicated mostly by the parents. A lady, because of the selfish, probably interest of either the father or the mother, would be, married off to a man whom they know probably would eventually abuse her. And probably because she has grown up to be told that you should always be patient, you should always endure, you should always be obedient to your parent, she'll keep quiet and also remain in that abusive, home. Recently, we actually tried a matter before a Sharia court, that is, an Islamic court, though the matter actually didn't even survive to hearing. We filed it, but it didn't survive to hearing. This was a lady whose hand was given in marriage to a man. I think they were some sort of cousins. I think they are cousins, and then so it was kind of arranged marriage. And from the story she told us, the marriage was actually arranged because the importance of the person in the community and also in the family. He's rich, he's this, he's that. She didn't like him from the beginning. She didn't like him, so they gave her hand in marriage to this man. And from the first day, she stayed in that marriage for 5 years. And in those 5 years, she was enduring all sorts of abuse from him, verbal, emotional, physical. She wasn't complaining. At a point, he told her to go. And every time she complained, they would tell her, look, you should just be patient, endure. Nobody was listening to her. They told her to go. He told her to go. She still wanted to stay, in obedience to her parents' advice. But the man insisted she must leave the matrimonial home. She left the matrimonial home and stayed away from the man for 4 months. This man did not declare his intention, because in Islam, she is still his wife. She talked to her parents, let's do something about this. Talk to this man. If he doesn't like me, he should divorce me. And she wasn't ready to go to court. She wasn't ready to approach anyone because the family kept telling her to endure. They are trying to find a way to resolve this issue. So later she had to speak out. So she spoke to a friend who now, brought her, and then she said she is tired. She wants to end it. So the matter was filed in court and the man was served. When he was served, he said, okay, no problem. What I intended was to divorce her. That was how the whole thing, ended. Eventually, he agreed to separation without having to go to court. So now look, the parents in this, in this situation, if you look at what happened, the parents actually played significant role, in keeping that lady in that bondage, in keeping her in that bondage. So I think, and then probably maybe the lady, because from my discussion with her, she didn't even understand what her rights were. If she had understood her rights, she wouldn't have stayed, because she could have sorted things out with her parents. She could have sought, because she's an educated lady. She's actually even working and all that. She's a graduate, she's this, she's that. And she has a child with the man. But then if you hear the story of the abuse, it's something that ought not to have lingered, for that long. Now, coming back to religious leaders, I think they have a role to play, and that role is for them first to appreciate the significance, the importance of domestic violence, because it's a reality we live. Now you have to understand something, because even the focus of our education, of our sermon, you understand, should actually have this content, because it's a problem. And if we allow it, we are also victims, even if we are not suffering it. Because you are producing children from this abusive home that would come one day probably to marry your daughter. Not only that, that would, because this, long-term effect of this is that the person probably become deviant, and then he will now be a problem to the community. If you do not have a peaceful home, you will not have a peaceful society. So I think it's a collective responsibility of everybody.
Yeah.
It's a collective responsibility of everybody. And like I said before, religious leaders and Muslim generally are expected, to always be, give good counsel to their fellow Muslims. Because in Islam, the Prophet is saying, ad-din al-nasiha, the whole of religion is good counsel. That you should always try to give good counsel. When you see your fellow brother doing something wrong, you should let him know that what he is doing is wrong. You should educate him. You should let him know. So we should educate the couple before marriage about their rights and about these issues you are now raising. I know some mosques have centers where they give actually premarital counseling, but unfortunately, actually, this is not very prevalent in our mosques. There are only a few mosques actually that do that. So I think the responsibility lies more on those religious leaders that give religious lessons that are either physically attended by these intending couples, or they are, because you either attend or you listen, probably maybe from the audio, or you watch the videos. We should do more of this, and especially on Fridays. Unfortunately, mostly it is the men that go to the mosque on Friday. There's nothing wrong with women actually going to the mosque, but mostly women do not go. It's not compulsory on them to go to the mosque. They can stay, they can pray in their homes. But if they want to go, God says you should allow them to go. So in most of this, we should find a way to reach out, and educate them in their trainings, in the educational centers. There are educational centers where they can actually. So I think it's very important, and it should also be a continuous process. While they are in marriage, you should also keep tabs with them, keep encouraging them, and also keep giving them, good counsel about how to manage the changes, they watch, they encounter, in the marriage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim. So, it is important for religious groups and religious leaders to continue to educate their members, especially intending couples, on their rights. I like that you mentioned that, their rights, and then to also call out, their members when they are doing what is wrong. So giving good counsel, okay, that is very important. If we had more religious groups and religious leaders doing that, I believe that we'll have less domestic violence and domestic abuse taking place in homes. So it's been a wonderful show. But before we round up, Pastor Tosin, please, you have any last words for our viewers? Christian, Muslim, people from all religious backgrounds are watching. What's your last word to them?
Thank you very much for this opportunity today. It has been fun. It's been great. I hope people are taking one or two things away from this. I will say two things. One, I will speak to men. Guys, you need to understand something, that women, they are what I regard, or what is regarded as, they are enhancers. Whatever you give the woman, she enhances it. She mass produces it. She increases it. If you give her fame, she makes it bigger. Whatever you invest in her, rather than being jealous or envious of what your other half is becoming, learn to appreciate what she's becoming. So many times, many men out there they see their wife and they look down on their wife, not realizing the same woman they are looking down on is a boss to somebody out there in the workplace. And there's somebody who is their age mate, who is their husband's age mate, who is saying yes, ma, yes, ma, yes, ma to that person. You need to understand that. And with that understanding, you would then be able to carry and support the gift that others are appreciating out there. Knowing fully that God ate them. Yes. But when it comes to this aspect of you looking at the woman you have, if you value and cherish that gift in your hand, the way others outside are cherishing, you have a better home, you have a sweeter home, you have a long-lasting relationship. And the other thing is that I normally say this to pastors. I don't think any pastor will hear a story of his daughter being beaten by her husband and tell her to keep praying. I don't think so. It's not. The humanity in you will stand up. You will put the cassock somewhere. You will feel like punching. Are you okay? You know, it's a natural thing. So if that is the case with your own child,
yeah,
if that lady who has come to cry to you that this man has beaten me, see it as if that is my daughter. Would I say, don't worry, go, we are praying for you? You won't say that. You will run, you will stand, you will want to do everything you can do to stop it, to make sure it doesn't happen, or to make sure that that person is saved or is alive. The same thing we do to those children we call our own. Let's extend it to everyone that is out there going through. God bless you.
Wow, thank you so much, Pastor Tosin. Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you so much, Ada. Look, this is a topic that is not possible. We can be here 24 hours and we're still, talking about it and looking for practical solutions, because it's happening every day under our noses, to friends, to neighbors, even if it's just in the news that we're hearing it. We need to keep speaking up. Please, we need to keep speaking up. We can't stop talking about it. And we need to keep sensitizing and educating people. Let these men know, at the end of the day, how it's going to affect them and affect the children that they have, given birth to, how they abuse on their wives or their spouses. Now, it's not limited to just men. Whoever is an abuser, whether it's the man or the woman, okay, let's keep raising our voices until we can make a change. The very least we can do is reduce the numbers, right? Reduce the numbers of people getting abused, reduce the number of people who are dying from abuse. You get what I'm saying? So we have to keep raising our voices. And Ada, you're doing a wonderful job. Keep speaking out, keep talking about it, about your experiences. There are people who are drawing strength from, you just talking about what you went through and how you're surviving outside of it. And I'm expecting your book. Okay, that book you're putting together, yeah, we're here for it. Whenever it drops, we're here to support you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for all your comments. My fans on Instagram and my viewers on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. Until next time on Gist with Esse, remember, stay happy, stay positive, stay mended. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.